All right. Well, welcome back. We were on a little break, a little hiatus. You and I
Mhm.
both had some things to do.
We did.
But there a lot has happened as always. Trump is keeping us on our feet. We have moved. Things I think have accelerated from us just watching as immigrants are having their doors busted down and being abducted to now citizens pretty much being up on the chopping block. No?
Right. I
We're
saw.
almost there, or are we there yet?
I mean, we're certainly at the point of some U.S. citizens have been detained when they come in contact with immigration, but also we're starting to see videos of folks just driving through New Mexico and being stopped at checkpoints that have nothing to do with crossing the border.
Really? I didn't
Yeah.
see that.
I saw a video of a woman who was basically stopped by immigration. They had set up a checkpoint, so it was Customs and Immigration, ICE. They set up a checkpoint that was, not, she wasn't entering or leaving the country. She was already in the country. She's just driving down a road, I think she said, to get to her house. And they set up a random checkpoint and were like, are you a US citizen? And she refused to answer because she was like, I'm not even traveling outside of the country. Like, what is this checkpoint? Now, it's true that they in the past have set up random checkpoints, but not like this. And the level of harassment that this woman got, she was a middle aged white woman. I think she had a child in the back seat
Oh,
because her
white
child,
woman?
yes, yes, yes. She was talking to somebody and she was like, are you recording this? So I assume it was like her child who was recording it. And she refused to tell them if she was a citizen. She said, am I being detained? They said, yes. And she said, why am I being detained? And they could not give her a good reason. They were like, you need to show us that you are a citizen. You need to prove it. She was like, no, I don't. It was like a whole 10-minute video.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of back and forth. I'm seeing because one, I think that ICE has complained and folks have
Hmm.
complained in the beginning because they've been having trouble
Right,
actually arresting folks because of these know your rights
right.
trainings. And I think that, the trainings are going beyond, just your immigrants and, just everyday citizens needing
Hmm.
to obviously know their rights. And you're seeing people actually, I mean, and I don't really be knowing the law like that, but the people on the cameras, they be ready with their rights and saying you don't actually have
Hmm.
the jurisdiction to search me or to do
Right.
certain things. But so many cops
Hmm.
seem to be seem to not know their job.
Well, you bring up an excellent point. I'm so glad you brought it up. But this has been long standing where a lot of people just think that rank and file police officers know the law. They don't. Guess what? I was in the Georgia legislature for 6 years serving the House of Representatives, and every year we pass new laws. So police officers
Right.
out on the street, you cannot
Right.
just assume that they keep up with these things and that they know the laws. That goes for ICE, that goes for your regular police officer that you might come in contact with.
Okay. But okay. Cause if I'm not mistaken, it's law enforcement.
It is.
So I would assume, I would think that part of like the job might be not just the enforcement part, but knowing the law. So is there not a built-in like education system, just like doctors, hell, realtors have to do a continuing education thing to update license every 2 years. So law enforcement, knowing that laws change, I mean, I think that is a great point. What is in place to make sure that the cops know the law that they're enforcing?
Right. So, number one, when you say knowing the law, I think you're thinking of lawyers and lawmakers. Those are the people who know the law.
I'm thinking of anything with
Uh,
law in it.
right. Okay. But common
Law
sense,
Roach.
right. Common sense, you would think anything with law in it. I'm just saying what you're saying is absolutely correct. But for the most part, it's lawmakers. And that's not always the case. But then lawyers are people who really know the law. The police officers, they do
But
have.
how do you enforce any something you don't aren't clear on?
So, what generally
And I think
happens.
that is actually has been a lot of our problem with
Hmm.
whether it's been the passport stuff, whether it's been
Hmm.
immigration stuff. Trump is creating so much confusion.
Hmm.
How do you enforce something you're not clear on?
So every year after the legislature wraps, at least this happens in Georgia. I'm sure it happens in other states because it's just common sense. Like you said, how can you enforce a law if you don't even know what the changes have been? The deputies, the officers, police are supposed to. They get notification of the laws that have changed, especially things relating to the criminal code. So they're supposed to familiarize themselves with it. But the reason why I think that that doesn't always really happen is because
So
number
it's just
one,
left up to them to just.
yes. And really, it's left up to you to know your rights so you can let them know when they're violating your rights,
Very
which is
true.
why you're starting to see a lot of folks say, listen, these are my rights. I know the law and I don't have to do what you're saying. But here's the important thing. So much of our system is built on just giving cops full discretion, and they need very little in order to detain you. If they just suspect that you may have committed a crime, that could just be anything in their mind. It could just be, oh,
Absolutely.
well, you just look like somebody who would commit a crime. If they can do that, then they can actually sort of move to the next step of saying we had to detain them. And,
They had reasonable suspicion.
exactly, exactly. So I think that's a lot of the reason why. And that's also why you can't really go off of just because somebody was arrested, they're automatically guilty. No, because the
Right.
people doing the arresting don't even know the laws half the time.
Well, I think that also again leads to the fact that if folks are able to again abduct pretty much people off the streets without clarity on laws, I think what folks are kind of missing with this El Salvador situation is that we've already been dealing with the version of this with Rikers.
Hmm.
Because just in New York, before someone's proven guilty of something, before there's clarity on the situation, they can be put in Rikers, which is one of the most dangerous places for people to be.
We've had this situation everywhere. Right here in Georgia, look at the case of Shali Tilson. I know his mom. I worked with the family to try to get justice. He was having a mental health episode, and he was detained by police officers and died while he was in jail. Now, what we know
Mm.
is he didn't pass away before he came in contact with police officers, but
Right.
he goes to jail. And in the process of trying to, before he had even gone to court or anything, I mean, he, you know, passed away in jail. So, like, the point is that the way that the system is built is that there are plenty of jails around the country where you are detained first and then you go to court second to see if you're
Ask
even guilty
questions
of,
later.
right,
Yeah.
exactly, detained first, ask questions later.
And unfortunately, what's bad about that situation now is when we get to the later part, there are situations where there's no repercussions.
Right. The later might be too late, like you pointed out in the case of, in the Rikers case, also many other examples of people who have gone to jail and they sat in jail for so long waiting for their court date because they didn't have money to pay for bail. And things have happened because, jails and prisons are not safe places by definition. And it just ends up where you could lose your life over some crime you never even committed.
And I think also there is something to be pointed out around the sort of capitalistic
Mhm.
aspect of these prisons and these situations. This president in El Salvador, he's sitting with Trump,
Mhm.
and they're both passing the buck back
Right.
and forth. Like, I don't know, I don't have the jurisdiction to bring them back. And Trump's like, well, I don't. And they're reiterating the point of they don't want to bring criminals into the thing, but we've already established that a lot of these folks don't even have criminal backgrounds.
Right. And also, let's just put it plainly, Trump doesn't care about the law. He's another person who doesn't know the law. And then when he does know some part of the law, does not care about following the law.
And if he
Let's just
did, I
make it
mean, he'd
plain.
be in prison.
He absolutely would be for not only the things that he's been convicted of, but the other things that he did and wasn't convicted of, but he absolutely did it.
So are we not reaching? I mean, I keep hearing people say constitutional crisis.
We're past that.
I think we're past that, right?
We are for sure past that because there have been several rulings by the Supreme Court. They have already, where they've told him that basically what he has done in the past, in the case of the Maryland man from El Salvador, Supreme Court has already said you need to facilitate bringing this man back. And the Trump administration has not made any steps that's known to the public of facilitating bringing this man back. So, you have that situation going on. He also was trying to fire the Fed chair this week.
Well, but did you also hear about Doge and the cybersecurity incident?
No, I didn't hear about this.
Oh my goodness. So, I'm going to have to we're going to dial in on this because I think this is going to be a bigger story than, just kind of tapping into it. But, apparently Elon Musk is apparently like stepping away from Doge and want to focus more on Tesla,
Right.
but at the same time, it has been said that there's been a cybersecurity incident where folks from Russia were able to have the logins that Doge, like, because obviously they tapped into that
Mm-hmm.
information. So there was actual, like, the data shows they were able to log in and download what they say is like a stack of encyclopedias worth of information. They have not yet verified who and what information they have downloaded, but in essence, Doge has facilitated, and the Trump administration has facilitated Russia having direct access to American data and information.
Of course, I believe it because most of these people that have been affiliated with Doge are people who know nothing about government. They don't even have security clearances. They don't understand how government works. They have been given access to sensitive information and haven't had any training around what that looks like as far as keeping the information sensitive. So, I mean, this is what happens when you get somebody in office who is a rogue president who, claims that he's going to shake things up and you
But
doesn't
what
even
is what
know.
is what is what is bothering me so much is I just don't understand with him doing things so badly. I don't why isn't this now the perfect time for Democrats to be able to put a spotlight and almost even like everything that leads up to constitutional crisis, that leads up to us being able to have a safety out because he's crossed the line as far as like not listening to the Supreme Court. Obviously, they already sped past him being an insurrectionist and let him run anyway. They sped past the 34 felony convictions. But wouldn't you think at this point with the cybersecurity risk, like he has created a situation where the actual safety of our country
Mhm.
is at risk? Isn't there, where's the button? I know there's a button somewhere, no?
I think that we are the button. There's a lot that we can do, even though we're not elected. There are tangible things that we can do. For example, you don't like what's happening with all this immigration stuff and ICE. Start treating these ICE officers like the pariahs they are. Don't date them. Don't go to lunch with them. Don't be friends with them. If those are your next door neighbors, cut off your social relationships with them. Same for police officers. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that makes it very difficult for them to serve. The other thing that we can all do is we see these constitutional rulings from the Supreme Court. We can decide to follow the Supreme Court. So if you do have ICE, which some of these ICE agents are saying things like, oh, well, I'm just doing my job or I'm just following orders. You hear updates about what the Supreme Court is saying just as well as anybody else. If the Supreme Court has made a ruling on something, they also can decide to just follow the Constitution and follow the Supreme Court instead of
Hmm.
saying, I'm just taking orders, which, by the way, when that happened in Nazi Germany and there were criminal proceedings after World War II, that was not a defense to just say,
Right.
oh, I
I
was
was
doing
just
my
following
job.
orders.
Right,
Right.
right. So there's a lot that we can do to push back and make it harder for Trump to execute this stuff. In fact,
It's because I'm thinking about it looks like white gangs
mhm,
in unmarked cars,
mhm.
in bubble coats and ski masks, just grabbing people out there and not having to show any idea. I just saw a video where they're taking a black dude that seemed like just an American. They were just, but it
Mhm.
unmarked cars, no identification, no nothing. Like, I think at this point, it seems like we need our own protection kind of situation because I don't believe, and there's been situations, there was a situation where the internet tracked down a guy who busted down someone's window trying to get
Mhm.
into someone and he wasn't even official.
Most of these people, I don't think are official. That goes for the Doge people. Most of the people who have been working with ICE, I don't think they're official. And so, like you pointed out, there are videos of them being hyper aggressive with folks. But then there are also videos of people saying, I know my rights and I'm not going to just go along with you. No, you cannot come in
And
my
they know
house.
they have to
Right.
stop at a certain
And they
point.
back up because they know that they are wrong. So that's what I'm saying is that a lot of this does come down to people resisting. Now, there are some great examples of elected officials who are also resisting. Mayor Brandon Johnson out of Chicago. Trump said that he was going to take away federal funding that would normally go to Chicago because Chicago is a sanctuary city, which is basically a city that says, listen, we're not going to pretend that we understand immigration and we're not going to be, working to help people get deported. We want to mind our city business, which is not the same thing as doing immigration work, which is something
Right.
that's mostly held at, that's like a federal thing.
Right.
So he said that he's just not going to comply. He's not going to go along with Trump's demands, and Trump is threatening not to send them millions of dollars. The point is, you've got that example. You've also got Harvard, which when they received a list of demands from Trump, they said, absolutely hell no, we
Yeah.
will not. Like, this is what it takes, is for everyday folks to do what they can to stand up, as well as those in elected office to just say no to Trump.
To not comply.
Right, to not comply, because the reality is Trump can't get any of these things that he wants done in his agenda done if he doesn't have help from other people.
Well,
He can't do it all himself.
I feel like you need to tell that message to Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, Chuck needs to stop helping him.
Because I feel like,
that's a message I would like to give to Chuck.
not to mention, I think it's David Hoggs
Right.
is the young DNC chair that is trying to raise money. Hey, David. Hi. Trying to raise money for, progressives to shake up these Democrats, these incumbents. And it just see one moment. No. Quiet. It just seems like wait, what was I just saying?
About David Hogg raising money for progressives.
It just seems like folks like Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, they're wanting to double down and support the incumbents.
They are, and we've had these conversations. I was explaining to you about how hard it is to be a progressive in the party, as an elected Democrat. It is very hard. But here's the thing: what David Hogg is doing is not new. There's Justice Democrats, which is an organization that has always existed to basically support progressives and to help, challenge and get rid of some of the incumbents. There are other organizations that have tried this. I just think, and I'm not saying that David Hogg should be doing what he's doing, because he absolutely should. But what I am
especially
saying
using
is
that white privilege and bumping up against some older white heads,
Right, if
that's
you
trying
can-
to tell him to step down.
Well, just the sheer power of, if he's able to raise money, the thing, you need that structural support in order to take on more incumbents. So not only do we need, David Hogg doing what he's doing, but we also need folks to support these organizations like Justice Democrats. Oftentimes Working Families Party is in the same boat of trying to replace your establishment Democrat with progressive Democrats who are going to prioritize the people. So yeah, I think that both on the Republican side as well as on the Democrat side, a lot of folks are looking at who they have elected into office, and they are saying, this is a bunch of crap, and I'm sick of it.
Well, that's why, I took to Threads and I did a little quick poll to the people, and I'll share some of the responses. But I said, should I run for Congress in 2026? And the responses were very mixed. A lot of people, some of the suggestions, I was like, you can choose yes, and I will volunteer. Yes, and I will donate. Nah, girl, not right now. Or nah, girl, not ever. And when I tell you, I had to really listen to all of the people's, because people really were sincere in their responses. And a lot of people said, yes, we'll support you. And we would love to have someone like you in there, but we don't believe that you, and I understand the doubt that they would have of me, because who am I next to anyone else, like, let's say, an AOC, who is this young, person that came in with all this, mindset to do right and to do all these things. But then folks watch her and see her shift a little bit in different moments as a career politician, and not to be as radical, like sticking with the Ayanna Presleys and the squad that was, saying certain things. She kind of broke form, especially around the DNC. So they're like, well, how I'm seeing people starting to move now, I just feel like there's no one who can get in and still remain themselves. Now, me, I feel like, and I've had this conversation
Right.
with you, that I feel like I'm a strong person who's had Hollywood
Mm-hmm.
waved in front of my face and all my dreams to be able to sell out.
Right.
And I said no then, and I'll say no again.
Right.
But it is also the situation, like with the conversations we've had, it's not about the Republicans and the white nationalists and the racists that I have to fight. It's also the people in the party, the incumbents, the people, and getting that mindset to shift. And I am in a place where I'm sitting on that fence.
But we also, here's the thing, it comes down to personal values. When my first day in the chamber in the House of Representatives in Georgia, there was somebody who said to me, who I respect, still respect, who said to me, I really love, your activist background, and the fighting that you bring to the Capitol. He was like, good job. You need to keep it up. He was like, I was an activist, just like you when I first started. He was like, and I'll tell you this, the longer you stay down here, the harder it is to keep the activist edge. 6 years later, I still had the same activist edge. During that time, I led a boycott of the governor's first speech, Brian Kemp, who, by the way, was the first person that I saw in a national way. This was 2018, say that he was going to get his truck and round up immigrants. So all the stuff that Trump was saying, this guy was like a mini Trump. The point is that all that comes down to how you are going to operate personally. So it's not fair to say that everybody falls into that, because I didn't fall into that. And there are other examples of people who didn't. Corey Bush, Jamal Bowman. What these people didn't have was people really did not, that same level of support and structure that we were talking about before. You have to keep
You
that
have to
consistent
have
for
it.
the
Yeah.
fighters. You
Yeah.
have to keep that consistent, because they
So
failed
I
because
think that
APAC attacked them.
is a very clear point to make
Mm-hmm.
here. And I think that is also why I am asking, and what I said to folks on that thread post was, regardless of what's going on, I'm asking for your support right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, as I'm speaking up on these issues on my YouTube or on my platforms or on everything, because we all know that there's such a effort at suppressing, silencing,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's removing people's vote or that's removing people from the algorithm or
Mm-hmm.
being able to participate in different ways. And if you haven't seen it, I know a lot of people have said they don't even see me unless they go to my pages.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm being suppressed heavily. And that's because there's an effort to suppress those radical and progressive voices. So if you want to see those people
Mm-hmm.
up front doing those things, you gotta be up front and center with your support.
And also, I'll say this, I'm not on Thread, so I didn't see what your initial post was or the responses, but I'll tell you this, as somebody who has done the job, I would trust you to stay authentic and to not sell out, because of exactly what you said. When you have proof that somebody has been in rooms where if they just kept their mouth shut, they would do much better, and those people have rejected those situations and taken the harder route to really stand up for their values, those are the kind of people that you can trust once you get in office. For me, somebody who was an activist, that wasn't my career before I got elected. I worked in the business world, but in my part-time, outside when I wasn't at work, I did a ton of activism work. Was heavy with like the Fight for 15. So we're walking into places that pay minimum wage and, shouting, demanding that, workers start to be paid 15. Having that backbone and having those experiences made it, there was a reason why I feel like, I'm naturally a determined, relentless person, but having that experience of facing backlash and having people not agree with what you're saying and having to step out of line and being comfortable breaking the rules and stepping out of line is exactly the type of person that you want in public office fighting for you, because that is a person who is not going to be led astray by, oh, well, listen, you can just stay with like be in the in crowd if you just be quiet. That's the kind of person that doesn't fall for that. I don't fall for that, and you've proven you don't fall for that.
And that's what I said to the people. I was like, you know what? Well, hopefully I continue to prove through my actions and what you've seen me be that that's not the girl I am. You know, and at this point when so much, everything right now is on the line, everything, student loans, Social Security, Medicaid, your nationality, if you even can claim that you belong here, even though if you were born here, everything is on the line. And, so many times what has been so disappointing to me, and it's like, of course, I get it. Like, when you're in a scary, challenging place, like, a lot of people's sort of natural instinct is to take cover, protect themselves, protect their families. Like, I understand that, but we're at a time right now where folks should see that they're coming for us all. So if we don't stand together, it makes it easier for them if we separate into our own corners and say, I'm just going to protect my thing, because separate, we're easier to take out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But if we're able to, really come together, and, I really feel that there is nothing. I'm right now in a situation, where I feel like I was telling you the other day, and I've talked to so many friends and so many families
Mhm.
who are just on or at a decision point. Are we at a place? I think it's a fight or flight for real moment for so many people and for myself as well, whose passport is going to expire in October. And, I don't want to feel trapped into a space that is dead set on erasing me. So I'm at a place where it's like, okay, it's either I pick up every arsenal that I have and it's time to fight. All of us, or knowing that as a black trans woman, that those marginalized identities have shown time and time, and I've even seen it over the past year as we tried to get our representation to represent all of us, is that my identity was disposable. It was, we'll get to you, girl.
Mhm.
We can't talk about those things right now.
Mhm.
So I don't feel safe um, in other people necessarily standing up. We're seeing people stand up for trans people here and there. But the one thing that is I'm standing on right now is that I think I might be one of the voices, one of the people that is meant to be here to fight in history. That's the one thing that is having me stand here, is just like everything is telling me, every fight that I've stood up for, every obstacle that I've overcome, I have done so to lead me to this point, to give me the experience of leadership and fighting big demons that I thought were so scary. And now I'm here. I've spoken to presidents, I've spoken to Congress people. So I will say, like, you were that person in my corner right now that even as we were the other day, you were like, well, listen, I do understand. You're not that friend that's saying, well, girl, it'll be, no, you understand the real challenges that I'm up against, but you also believe
Mhm.
in my ability to take on this moment.
And like I said before, the folks that I trust and that I want to vote for are people who have the ability to lead like I led, and those are people who are willing to their give up the status quo, give up their status is what
Their
I mean, not
comfort,
status quo,
yeah.
but give up their comfort, put their comfort to the side, and put away, willing to lose status over fighting for what they told me they were going to fight for before they got elected. And that is the background that you have. So to me, those are the people. Every person is a gamble, because you never know what they're going to do when they get in office. But to me, the people who have that track record of standing up are the people that I feel are the best bets, and
Okay,
that's
well,
you.
that aside, then we still have to deal with the fact of, we know that one person, no one person that
Hmm.
we vote in or whatever can do and change
Hmm.
everything that needs to be changed. And so if I'm going in there, y'all know y'all shouldn't be doing it.
Hmm.
You know you shouldn't be doing that. And I've also got to work with people who are
Hmm.
willing to work with me. And I know you've had that experience,
Hmm.
and yes, I got some fresh energy to come
Hmm.
in there and deal with that. But um can I actually make an impact?
You can. I had an impact, and when it felt like many times I was fighting alone, there were a few other folks. We had our little, what I would call the Georgia squad, that was similar to like what you see at the federal level with AOC and
Iyanomar.
Yeah, Ayanna Presley and others. So like, but the thing is that, yeah, I just think that when you know what you're fighting for and you're passionate about that, that can take you a very long way. But we absolutely do need the efforts, like what you mentioned before, of folks who are willing to take on these incumbents and show folks a different type of Democrat they can vote for. When I originally got elected, I ran against what was a very centrist Democrat. His dad was famous on TV. His dad was Grady on Sanford and Son, and I love the show too. But
Right.
I did not feel like he was using his voice to elevate the issues that we really need to talk about, and using his voice in a very powerful way. So I ran against another Democrat, unseated him, and that's how I got elected to public office. And that was my first time ever running for office.
Right.
So I just think that that drive, when you go in and you are there for issues and you are there for people, prioritizing what people need rather than self-aggrandizement, that is the person that makes a better rep than what we're seeing far too much of in the Democratic Party, which is a
Right.
bunch of people who just want to stay comfortable with their status.
Career politicians. All right. So, okay. So it's not a no. I'm still thinking about it right now. We still gonna talk about it. We still gonna talk about the
Yes, it
things.
will.
All right. So what else should we cover before we get out? Is there anything else we need to try to make sense out of?
Yeah, we got a few things to make sense
Yeah.
out of. The Trump administration is considering paying folks $5,000 to have a baby.
Say what now?
Right, right. So the Trump administration, okay, so America,
They don't even take care of the kid. What?
okay, well, you already hit, okay, we can wrap it up. You already just said it. That's it. They don't even take care of the kids that are already here. Exactly.
They don't even want to give them food. Seconds.
They don't even want to provide health care for the folks who get, they don't even want to provide health care for people trying to give birth.
But we know. Okay. So I'm gonna shoot right. I'm gonna shoot right through and say the point of all of this is for a workforce.
A workforce also for and there are a lot of countries that are struggling with low birth rates. So like China's struggling, Korea's struggling, Japan's struggling, Australia's struggling.
But what's the struggle?
They're struggling.
Wait,
is
wait,
people-
what I mean is, what is the struggle if the birth rate is low,
Mhm.
right? What is that doing? Because to me, it sounds like that means we ain't got enough people to apply for these jobs.
It's definitely first and foremost about workers, but it also goes back to money as well. Because think about it, for example, the way that you and I grew up understanding Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid, like the social program, the social safety nets that we have in the country, is that when you work, you pay into those social safety nets. And so therefore, when you retire, you can get your Social Security, you can go on Medicare. So like if you don't have people working and paying into those, then you don't have enough money coming in to sort of keep it going. Now, here's what I think. Instead of trying to pay people to have babies, which other countries have tried and that did not work out so well, increase the support for folks who are parents. That's number one, because that's a big reason why people
Right.
say that they don't want to have kids. But the other thing too is you have to give people access to health care. As I just said, right now, you know, Black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die through maternal mortality just trying to give birth. And we've been fighting like hell just to get, you know, Medicaid expanded,
Right.
just to get access to health care. So the thing is this, at the end of the day, yes, people need to have more support if you want to increase the birth rate, but also the other thing we can do is tax the rich. There is your money that you would need to shore up Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of that if you just have the correct tax system.
I swear, just a little bit.
Mhm.
If they just taxed a little bit,
Right.
it would be a lot of money for a lot of people. And you know, honestly, I have been watching some shows on TV. You know, I am divesting from all of the streaming platforms and stuff like that because I feel like the only way we can do some of this stuff is to hit them in their pockets. So wherever I can, I am. But I've been watching a lot of different stuff before those things end, and so many shows that I'm seeing are basically apocalyptic about the end of the world after a certain place, and each one of them. There was actually one of them I'll plug, I guess, right now, and I don't even need to plug it, but I'm plugging it because I saw it on Amazon Prime. I thought it was a movie. No, I think it was HBO Max, one of them, but it was called 2073. I thought it was a movie, and it started off like a movie and a woman like going through an post-apocalyptic place or whatever. But then it just went like as it was a documentary, and it started using very real world footage to show how they got there to that place in there. And so everything is showing that I don't know if there's information that rich people know that we don't know or whatever, but I think it feels like a race now. It feels like they don't even care anymore. And I don't know if it's because the more we've unveiled things to see more of how things operate, now they don't care about how things look. The oligarchy is in full effect, and it's going towards billionaires and basically taking as much as they can, and whether it's water, whether it is the water being bought up by rich people buying up land that they can control water, whether it is Chat GPT stealing the water because it needs to use all of that. Everything is going towards those who have money, access, and privilege to continue to have access to a dwindling resource that is our planet and everything.
And then part of that dwindling resource is people. They need people as well to work for their companies. They need people as well. They can't be as rich as they are
Without the people working and doing things.
Exactly. And so that's why this conversation about birth rate is coming into focus. And that's why you are seeing
But also the people they're talking about employing and that birth rate, they're talking about I always just kind of compare it to like an ant farm. Like they just want ants,
Bodies.
bodies to
Hmm.
move things and do stuff. They don't want you to have a brain even.
Right. And so that is a part of it.
Burn them books.
I saw something the other day where some far right podcaster, a news person was showing a clip of some far right podcaster talking about that, in order to increase the birth rate, we need to go back to doing things like, restricting access to education for women, just all this crazy stuff to try to make it so that people would have nothing to do
But
but
have babies.
reproduce. Right, exactly. And that's the crazy thing, is that they know that they're in trouble. So while they might act like that they don't care, they do understand that resources that we have are limited. And
But to increase the birth rate
mhm,
and not increase the resources to handle those things, what people don't understand is that society creates its own evils, its own
mhm,
villains. And so crime is not because those immigrants or black people or this. Crime is a social structure. Like
mhm,
it's created because you without education programs, without access to certain things, people get desperate.
mhm, right.
What else?
I think that
Child,
might be yes.
I feel like we windmilling right now. Cause one thing I know right now, the one thing that also just came up is they trying to put these student loans back into full effect.
That was the next thing I was going to bring up. Right. So during
I
COVID,
still owe student loans.
right. So during COVID, the federal government got a little more relaxed on student loans because people were already struggling. The economy was bad. And so now the Trump administration is set to very soon,
Like May, like a couple
like May,
weeks.
right, right, exactly, make it to where everybody goes back into repayment, which is estimated to hit like 5 million people. They're saying they're going to garnish tax refunds, pensions, paychecks.
Let me tell you something. I already have a letter drafted because I've been seeing people talking online just about a lot of stuff. I'm trying. I'm trying it all. So I'm drafting a letter. I'm be like, because my loan has been sent to this person and that person without my consent and all these different things. So I don't know what's going on, but y'all need to delete it. That it's, I'm summarizing, but the letter says something like that. But I know I've been a public servant. I did done a lot of things. Y'all need to erase them damn student loans. And listen. I hear you to all y'all people who paid your student loans. I listen. I know it's a hard thing to do in America and do all that. And listen, baby, that was great. I know it's been hard, but listen, just because you had it hard, don't mean that everybody else got to have it hard. Listen, I can keep clapping for you if I want to. I will clap every day if that what it takes to get you to support people getting them loans forgiven because I mean, damn, America.
The crazy thing too is everybody sees how high inflation is. Everybody sees like what's going on with the economy because of Trump and the tariffs. So it's like this is the absolute wrong time. If you were going to just throw folks into repayment, this is the wrong time
This
to do
is
that.
the absolute wrong
Right.
time.
So economists are saying that's
This time's
probably
not good for me right now.
yeah.
Can we
This
try
time, this time's not good for America
let's
right
try about
now.
now 6 months. Maybe let's try again in 6 months. We'll see.
Right.
But no, we're not in repayment right now. We're going to do everything we can to not be in repayment on that. Listen, because like I'm like y'all, and I have to tell people like this myself as well, and that's why I do consider myself to be of the people. I've been an activist ever since diapers, pretty much, because I realized I had to advocate for my own
Mhm.
self and my own safety, and then I learned how to advocate for others and stuff like that. But I lost my train of thought. What was I gonna say? I have no idea.
I don't know. We can wrap it up.
We
We
sure
talked about
can,
everything.
exactly. So, well, okay, Renita, that is a lot of things, and I don't know quite sure that we made sense out of everything. It's a lot of nonsense. Um, I am still on the fence about whether I am running for office or not. And I say on the fence is because when you do this, it's a commitment.
Hmm. It's
It
a very
takes
big
it's a
commitment.
huge commitment. It takes a lot of your life.
Hmm.
I also got to ask a lot of people for a lot of money.
Hmm.
So it's going to be a lot of things and I'm going to need a lot of support. So if I do it, I'm the type of person that doesn't like do something half-ass.
Right.
Like if I do it, I'm saying I'm going to do it. So that's why I'm taking every bit. We have been talking now for probably like 2 years now,
At least.
at least. So when people have been calling us, like news outlets have been calling wanting to talk to Renita
Hmm.
or talk to me, just about how things are going. but we're really asking some hard questions about whether or not I should run. It's not just an easy decision. I do want to do what I can do. And, I'm glad that I have people in my life like you who remind me that I'm able to do something whether I'm in office or not,
Hmm.
but that are able to help me see myself in those places that we haven't been before.
Right. But at the end of the day, I always come back to, but we still need people in office that we can trust.
Yes,
So
I
it's true, you can
understand.
have an impact in office or out of office. We
Right,
still
but
need
she's
people
still
in
leaning me
office
towards
that we can
yes.
trust.
Okay, so that made a little sense. That made sense to me. All right, well, y'all, that is all we can make sense of right now. We will hit y'all next week with some more foolery to talk about, but that's it for right now. We'll be right back.